There is a specific kind of unhappy that does not look like unhappy from the outside. The bills are paid, the relationships are stable, the routine is manageable, nothing is dramatically wrong. But nothing is dramatically right either. And somewhere in the quiet moments, usually late at night or early in the morning before the day fills up with noise, you feel it. This low and persistent sense that you are not living at the level you are actually capable of. That's somewhere between who you were going to be and who you became. Something got traded away for comfort. And the trade made sense at the time, but you are not sure it still does. This audiobook is for that feeling, and more importantly, it is for what comes after it. The Hungry Years. What happens when you stop being comfortable? Introduction. The comfortable trap. Nobody warns you about comfort. Every warning you ever received was about the hard things, about failure and poverty and loneliness and loss, about the things that hurt in obvious ways, the things that announce themselves loudly and demand to be dealt with. Nobody warns you about the thing that will most likely keep you from the life you are actually capable of living. Comfort. Not the comfort of rest after genuine effort. That kind of comfort is earned and necessary and good. The comfort of having stopped, of having reached a level that feels safe enough and staying there long past the point where staying serves you, of having made peace with a life that is fine when something in you has always known that fine was never the real destination. Comfort is sophisticated in a way that pain is not. Pain announces itself. It demands response. It makes the problem impossible to ignore, but comfort wraps itself around you quietly. It feels like arriving. It feels like you have finally done enough to deserve rest. And by the time you realize that the rest has become a permanent residence rather than a stop along the way, you have been still for so long that movement feels dangerous. This audiobook is about getting hungry again. Not desperate, hungry. There is a difference that matters. Desperation is reactive. It is driven by fear and urgency and the panic of having waited too long. Hunger is different. Hunger is proactive. It is the quiet and powerful awareness that there is more available to you than you are currently living and the decision to go after it with everything you have. The hungry years are not the years when everything is falling apart. They are the years when you decide that fine is not enough, when you choose growth over comfort deliberately and without apology, when you trade the safety of the known for the expansion of the possible. Those years change everything. Let them begin. Chapter 1. How you got here. You did not choose comfort consciously. Nobody does. Nobody sits down one day and decides to stop growing, to let their ambition quietly expire, to trade everything they were reaching for in exchange for a manageable routine. It happens gradually, in a series of completely reasonable decisions that each made perfect sense at the time. You took the safer job because the risk felt too large at that particular moment. You stayed in the city you already knew because moving was complicated and expensive and uncertain. You stopped pursuing the thing that lit you up because it was not practical, and the practical thing was right there and needed doing. You told yourself you would come back to the bigger life later, when things settled down, when the timing was better, when you had more resources or more courage or more of whatever felt missing. And later kept becoming later. And somewhere in the accumulation of those reasonable decisions, the version of you that was hungry for something real got quieter. Not gone, never completely gone, but quieter, more patient, more willing to wait for the later that was always being promised but never arriving. You got here the same way everyone gets here, by being reasonable in a world that rewards reasonableness, by being responsible in a life that required responsibility, by making the safe choice enough times that safety stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like a personality. Understanding this matters because it removes the shame. You did not fail. You did not give up in some weak and unforgivable way. You responded to the conditions of your life with the tools and the information and the courage you had available at each moment. And those responses brought you here. Here is just a location, not a verdict, not a permanent residence unless you decide it is. The hunger that brought you to this audiobook is not an accusation of your past. It is an invitation to your future. Chapter 2. What hunger actually feels like. Real hunger is not loud. This is the part that confuses people who are waiting to feel dramatically motivated before they begin. They are waiting for the movie version of the turning point. The swelling music and the determined look, and the sudden certainty that everything is about to change. Real hunger does not arrive that way. Real hunger feels quieter and stranger and more persistent than that. It feels like a low-grade dissatisfaction that does not go away no matter how much you do to address its surface symptoms. It feels like knowing, without being able to fully articulate it, that the version of your life you are living is not the version you are capable of. It feels like paying attention to certain people or certain possibilities and experiencing not just admiration but recognition. Not just the thought that what they have is impressive, but the thought that something in you already knows how to get there. That recognition is hunger, that specific and personal resonance with a possibility that has not yet been realized. The part of you that looks at what someone else has built and thinks not just I want that, but I am supposed to build something like that. Most people dismiss this feeling. They call it jealousy or fantasy or impracticality, and they file it away and return to what is in front of them. The hungry years begin when you stop dismissing it. When you let the feeling be what it actually is, which is information, which is your deeper self communicating something important about the gap between where you are and where you are built to go. You do not need to know how yet. The how comes later, and it comes in pieces, and it is never as clear as you want it to be before you begin. But you need to let the hunger be real. You need to stop managing it down into something more comfortable and instead let it be the fuel it is designed to be. Chapter 3. The cost of comfort. Comfort has a price that never appears on any invoice. You never receive a bill. Nobody sits you down and shows you the accounting. But the cost is real, and it compounds over time in ways that eventually become impossible to ignore. The first cost is capability. Human beings are built to be used, not exploited, used, stretched, required to expand in response to challenge and demand and difficulty. When you remove challenge from your life in the pursuit of comfort, your capabilities begin to atrophy the same way a muscle atrophies without use, not dramatically or immediately, slowly, imperceptibly at first, but consistently. The person who has been comfortable for 5 years is less capable in most meaningful ways than the person who has been growing for 5 years. Not because of any inherent difference between them, because of the compounding effect of being required to grow versus being permitted to stay still. The second cost is self-respect. This one is the most painful and the most carefully hidden, because the comfortable person usually has external markers of a successful life. The job, the home, the relationship, the appearance of having figured things out. But underneath the appearance, in the private accounting that only they have access to, they know that they have been making withdrawals from their self-respect for longer than they want to admit. Every time you know you are capable of more and choose less anyway, there is a cost, small and almost invisible in the moment, but it accumulates, and eventually the account balance communicates itself in ways that are hard to deny, in the quality of your relationship with yourself, in the absence of genuine excitement about your life, in the persistent low-level anxiety that something important is being left undone. The third cost is time, and this one is the most finite. You have a specific number of years in which you are capable of the particular kind of building that your hungry self is designed for, not because of age exactly, because of energy and context and the particular alignment of your circumstances and your capabilities and your moment in history. That alignment is not permanent. The window for the specific thing you are built to do is open right now, and it will not be open forever. This is not a threat. It is an invitation, the most urgent and honest invitation available. Chapter 4, Waking the Hunger Back Up. If you have been comfortable for a long time, the hunger does not roar back immediately. It wakes up the way something does after a long sleep, slowly, disoriented at first, needing some time to remember what it is and what it wants and how to move. The way you wake it up is not through dramatic declarations. It is through exposure. Expose yourself to people who are building at the level you want to build at, not to compare yourself to them, to remind yourself that the level is real, that it is being reached by human beings with limitations and fears and complicated lives, that the gap between where you are and where they are is not a gap of fundamental capacity. It is a gap of choices made over time. Expose yourself to the edges of your current comfort zone, deliberately and regularly, not in ways that are reckless, in ways that are just slightly beyond what feels fully safe, because hunger lives at the edge of comfort. It cannot survive in the center where everything is already handled and known and managed. Expose yourself to your own honest assessment. This is the hardest one. Sit with yourself and ask the questions you have been avoiding. What would you do with your life if you actually believed you were capable of doing it? What have you been telling yourself you will get to later that you know, honestly, later is not coming unless you make it now? What does the version of your life that matches your actual potential look like, and what specifically are you doing instead of building it? These questions are uncomfortable. Let them be uncomfortable. Discomfort is the hunger waking up. It is exactly what you need. Chapter 5, The Decision That Changes the Timeline. There is a specific decision that separates the people who talk about changing their life from the people who actually change it. It is not the decision to try harder. Trying harder within the same framework produces more of the same results, only with additional exhaustion. It is the decision to change the framework itself, to stop optimizing the comfortable life and start building the hungry one, to stop asking how do I make what I currently have slightly better and start asking what would I build if I were operating from my full potential and had the courage to act on what I found. This decision does not require that you have all the answers before you make it. It does not require a complete plan or guaranteed outcomes or the certainty that you will succeed. It requires only the honest acknowledgement that the current framework is not the right one and the willingness to begin building a different one even without knowing exactly what it will look like when it is done. Most people wait for certainty before making this decision. They wait to know that the leap will result in a landing before they leave the ground. And so they never leave the ground, because the certainty they are waiting for is not available before the leap. It is only available after, and after only comes for the people who go. The decision that changes your timeline is the decision to go without the certainty, to begin without the complete plan, to move in the direction of the hungry life before you know exactly how to get there. The direction is enough to start. The how fills in as you move, but you have to move first. Chapter 6, Building While Scared. Here is the truth about the people you most admire. They were scared. The entrepreneur who built something remarkable was scared when they started. The artist who created work that moved people was scared when they began. The person who left the comfortable life and built the hungry one was scared every step of the way. The difference between them and the person who stayed comfortable is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to build anyway. Fear in the context of growth is not a warning signal. It is a confirmation signal. It confirms that you are attempting something that matters to you, something that is genuinely outside the boundary of what you have already proven you can do, something with real stakes. If something does not scare you at all, it is probably not big enough. The hungry years are years of building while scared, of making decisions that feel too large before the capability catches up, of beginning things that you do not yet know how to finish, of saying yes to possibilities that outstrip your current preparation. And what you discover when you build while scared is that the fear does not go away, but the capability grows to meet it, that you develop in real time through the doing of the frightening thing, the exact capacities you needed and did not have before you started. This is how the hungry life is built, not from a position of already having everything you need, from the position of beginning with what you have and trusting that what you need will be built through the process of trying to get there. Chapter 7: The People Who Will Not Come With You. This chapter is the one that costs something, because the hungry life is not always compatible with the comfortable community you have built around yourself. Some of the people in your life have a vested interest, unconscious but real, in you staying where you are, not because they are malicious, because your movement creates a mirror. Your decision to stop being comfortable reflects on their decision to remain comfortable, and that reflection is not always welcome. When you change direction, some people will support you. Some will be quietly threatened. Some will express their threat as concern, warning you about risk and practicality and all the ways the hungry life might not work out. Some will express it as subtle mockery, the jokes that are not quite jokes, the tone that suggests your ambition is slightly embarrassing. These people are not your enemies. They are just not your traveling companions for this particular journey. You cannot take everyone with you into the hungry years, and you cannot let the people who are not coming veto the trip. This requires a kind of love that is firm and clear. You love the people you are leaving behind in terms of energy and proximity, but you love your potential more, and you are clear without cruelty that their comfort is not your ceiling. Surround yourself instead with people who are also hungry, people who are building something, people for whom growth is a shared value and not a source of discomfort, people who make your ambition feel normal rather than excessive. The people you spend the most time with will either feed the hunger or quiet it. Choose them accordingly. Chapter 8: What the Hungry Life Actually Looks Like. Let us be honest about something. The hungry life is not a permanent state of peak performance and dramatic progress and constant visible wins. It looks mostly like ordinary days, lived with extraordinary intention. It looks like getting up and doing the work when nothing about the day feels particularly inspired or significant. It looks like making the choice that serves the long game over the choice that feels good right now, again and again, in moments that feel too small to matter, but that add up to everything. It looks like failure, regular failure, the specific kind that comes from attempting things that are genuinely difficult, not the failure of incompetence, but the failure of someone who is reaching past what is comfortable and sometimes misjudging the reach. It looks like uncertainty. The hungry life does not come with guarantees. The comfortable life is comfortable precisely because it has removed most of the uncertainty. The hungry life puts the uncertainty back, and you learn to operate inside it rather than waiting for it to resolve before you move. But here is what the hungry life also looks like. It looks like being genuinely excited to wake up. Not every day, but enough days that the feeling is familiar and real rather than a distant memory of something you used to feel before the routine took over. It looks like going to sleep knowing that you used the day, that the hours contained something meaningful, that you moved, however slightly, in the direction of something that actually matters to you. It looks like a self you respect, not a perfect self, not a finished self, but a self that is in motion, a self that is engaged with its own potential, a self that has stopped making the trade of aliveness for safety and is paying the price of that reclamation willingly. That is the hungry life, and it is worth every uncomfortable thing it costs. Chapter 9: The Compound Effect of Hunger. Here is what most people do not understand about sustained hunger. It compounds. The first month of the hungry life feels hard mostly. You are breaking old patterns and building new ones, and the discomfort of the unfamiliar is loud. The progress is real, but it is not yet visible, and the effort feels disproportionate to the results. The third month feels different. The new patterns are beginning to feel more natural. The capacity that was being built in the first month is starting to show up as real capability in the third. The small actions that felt almost trivially small in the beginning are beginning to accumulate into something you can point to. The first year is where it gets interesting. By the first year, the person living the hungry life is genuinely different from the person who began it, not just in what they have achieved, in who they are, in what they believe about themselves, in what they are willing to attempt, in how they respond to difficulty and uncertainty and failure. And by the third year, the compounding has produced something that is genuinely difficult to recognize from the starting point. Not because the hungry person got lucky or found some secret, because they stayed hungry when comfort invited them back, because they kept building when the visible results did not yet justify the effort, because they trusted the compound effect of consistent direction even when the compound interest had not yet showed up in the account. This is the promise of the hungry years, not immediate transformation, compounding transformation, the kind that is slow enough to be discouraging in the short term and undeniable in the long term. Commit to the long term. The short term will take care of itself. Chapter 10. Arriving at the life you chose. There is a moment, different for everyone, when you look up from the work and realize something. The life around you is no longer the comfortable one you left. It is the hungry one you were building toward. Not finished. The hungry life is never finished because hunger by nature is always reaching for the next thing, but recognizably different from where you started. Recognizably the product of the choices you made and the discomfort you tolerated, and the people you chose to travel with, and the days you showed up even when nothing about the day felt like it mattered. This moment does not arrive with fanfare. It arrives quietly, the way all real things arrive. You are just living your life and something makes you look up and you see it. The distance traveled. The person you have become in the traveling. The life that is now actually yours rather than the life that was handed to you and that you mistook for destiny. And the hunger is still there, because it was never about arriving. It was about the quality of being alive that comes from moving towards something real. The hunger does not disappear when the goal is reached. It simply finds the next horizon and begins again. This is not a problem. This is the design. You were built to want things worth wanting and to go after them with everything you have. You were built for the hungry life. The comfortable life was always just a detour. And you have found your way back to the road. Conclusion. The years start now. The hungry years are not a phase you prepare for. They are a decision you make. And the decision can only be made now. Not when the conditions improve or the timing aligns or the fear subsides or the plan becomes clearer. Now, in this moment, with this life, with these specific circumstances and these specific limitations and this specific version of you, that is exactly enough to begin. What you need to start the hungry years you already have. You have the awareness that the comfortable life is not the full life. You have the hunger that brought you to this audiobook and kept you listening to the end. You have the capacity that has been waiting quietly behind the comfort for longer than you know. You have everything required to begin. The only question is whether you will. Not whether you will succeed. That question comes later, and it is answered by what you do between now and then. Whether you will begin is the only question that exists right now, and it has a very simple answer. You begin because the alternative is more of what you already have, and what you already have is fine, and fine is not what you came here for. You came here for the hungry life, the real one, the one that matches what you have always known.